Are you struggling with balancing work and life? Are you struggling with setting boundaries at work? Today we are going to talk about setting healthy workplace boundaries and how important it is for motivation, productivity, and getting more done. So the first step in setting healthy boundaries at work or in your workplace is to know what you want. I know this seems so straightforward, but very often, if you don't know what it is that you are hoping for, what your intentions are, what your goals are, it's hard to know how other people are overstepping their boundaries. It's hard to know how it is that you need to identify what those boundaries are with others and communicate. So the first thing to do is to write down what you're hoping for, what your goals are, what your intentions are, because if you can't articulate your boundaries, no one else is going to be able to. The second step in setting healthy workplace boundaries is to prioritize yourself. I know that sounds, again, fairly straightforward, but what happens is that when others come to us with lots of requests and urgency and importance and all kinds of issues, we lose sight of ourselves. Step 2 is about not just remembering your own boundaries, but remembering how important your time, your energy, your attention, and your priorities are. What I want you to do is reprioritize yourself. On my channel, I've talked a lot about the fact that time is your only unrenewable resource. Energy, attention, money, stamina, willpower, you can get all of those back, but time you can never get back. So step 2 is really stepping up and acknowledging that you will prioritize yourself first and foremost. Step 3 in setting healthy workplace boundaries is about finding clear communication methods and communicating clearly. And by that I mean when you have, let's say, an infraction of a boundary, or you feel like someone has asked you something unreasonable, or you feel like someone's taking up too much of your time and energy, you need to communicate that clearly. If you are vague, if you are opaque or mumbly, if you don't clearly and succinctly state that this is a violation of what you perceive to be a boundary, then they won't either, and they won't understand what the issue is. And so step 3 is really about finding the language and making sure you have the confidence to communicate your boundaries clearly. So you know what your boundaries are, you've prioritized yourself, and you are communicating clearly about that. There are still going to be boundary violations. There are still going to be asks you don't think are reasonable. There are still going to be projects that take up too much of your time. One of the things to do that all the research corroborates is to make sure that you do not ruminate about it. One of the truths is that the more energy and effort you put behind feeling emotional, feeling transgressed, feeling like things have gone wrong, the bigger of a deal it becomes and the harder it becomes to tackle. So if you find yourself ruminating about something, address it immediately. Make sure that you aren't letting it build in there and percolate and become a bigger deal than it is. Part of managing your boundaries is communicating them clearly, but communicating them quickly. Step 5 in setting boundaries in the workplace is to create structure. It's actually one of my favorite tools. What creating structure means is that, as an example, when you have a meeting with someone, you would have an agenda. You would have a beginning time, an end time. You would make it known that being late isn't okay and running overtime isn't okay, that you are using structure to structure your time and your productivity. There are other ways you can do this as well. I've seen it very effective when people will, as an example, close their door so that it's very evident that that is time they need to work. Another tool for creating structure is, as an example, to put an out of office on when you know you need unrequited time to work or to be productive, or you need some level of privacy in the office. If you do that, then you are managing other people's expectations of when you will be available as well as when you won't be available. And so if you can, make sure to try to set those boundaries when it comes to things like emails or stopping in at your desk or office. This will help also with setting those healthy boundaries. Part of the benefit of establishing this structure of setting boundaries and of managing expectations is that what it creates is norms around what people can expect from you. I'll give you an example. One of the things that I have done poorly often in my career was that I would continually answer email all day long. What it allowed was that anyone could interrupt me and my flow and my progress and my priorities at any time of day by sending me an email, and I would prioritize their email first. It sets the wrong message and it sets me up for failure, and here's how. First of all, it sets the message that your email is more important than my work. Second, it creates the expectation over time that every time you send me an email, I will respond right away. There's a small example of something that I've had to tweak in terms of how I create structure in order to set up healthy boundaries in my work life. The final step, step 6, in setting healthy workplace boundaries is to expect that violations will happen. There will be people who ask you to do too much, too often. There will be asks you think are unreasonable. Instead of blowing up, expect it. If what you do is you expect that these violations will happen, you'll be a lot more cool, calm, and collected, and you will be able to prepare statements for how to clearly, succinctly, and quickly communicate that as a violation of your boundaries. So, as you think about how it is that you are going likely to have asks that you think are unreasonable, also think of how you would respond to that in a polite, cool, calm, and collected manner. Have you ever had anyone overstep your boundaries at work? I'd love to hear about what you said, how you managed it, how you created structure, and how you overcame that. I hope this video will help you with setting healthy boundaries at work. Comment below, and we'll see you tomorrow.